tutorials how to make sugar skulls without the need for meringue powder for your Dia de los Muertos or Day of the Dead celebrations. I think these turned out really cute and adorable despite the morbid nature of the holiday. Traditionally, sugar skulls are a lot bigger, and you would put a piece of foil with the name of the person you're giving it to across the forehead. If you do find a larger mold and want to make larger sugar skulls, just make sure that you hollow out the inside of the mold so that when you bake it, it's no more than an inch thick. This recipe doesn't use meringue powder, it uses egg whites instead, so it requires baking them to a temperature where it's going to be safe to eat. To make the skulls, you will need a large bowl, a small bowl, 3 cups of sugar, and an egg white. To start, separate the egg. Then set the yolk aside or use it for something else. Next, combine your sugar and egg whites in the large bowl, and then simply mix them with your hands, adding sugar as you go. So now that I've mixed in all of my sugar, I've actually ended up adding a tiny bit extra sugar. I live in more of a moist environment. I'm right on the coast, but if you live in the desert, you might not need to do this. The mixture should not be wet to the touch. It should be just moist enough that the sugar holds its shape, but it shouldn't actually feel wet. So you see when I grab a handful of this, it's going to clump together like that. And if it's too moist, it's going to stick into the molds and you won't be able to get the solid skulls to come out of the molds. So I'm just going to cut up this mold into complete sets of skulls. Cutting up the individual pieces, and this is how it's going to go down. So here are the 2 things I have found most helpful with this recipe. You just put in enough that it's going to stay in there. You press it down firmly with the spoon, put a little extra on top, and then scrape off what's on the sides. And that's good. You don't want to press it too firmly into the mold, otherwise it's not just going to slide out like you want it to. Now also you need to make sure that your mixture is not too wet. If it's too wet, it's just going to stick into the fine details of the skull and you're never going to be able to get it out. So just press them firmly together. You don't want to slide them around at all after you begin pressing them together, because then the sugar is compacted and it's compacted firmly into 2 separate pieces. So press down firmly for a few seconds and then you'll tap it if it's not coming out. Otherwise it should, theoretically anyway, just slide out of the top piece and then just plop it out of the other side into your hand. Now dust off any edge pieces that show it came from the mold. And set it down on the baking sheet. Next, pop the skulls in the oven at 200 degrees for 45 to 55 minutes or until the egg smell disappears. This will ensure that the egg is thoroughly cooked, making your skull safe to eat, as well as setting the mixture so it hardens. Then once your skulls are finished baking, take them out and allow them to cool for about 30 minutes before you start decorating them. For this, you're going to need an electric mixer, a large bowl, a pair of scissors, some plastic baggies, and your measuring spoons. And for your ingredients, you'll need 2 cups of powdered sugar, 1 teaspoon vanilla extract, 4 teaspoons corn syrup, 4 teaspoons milk, and your food coloring. First, combine all of your ingredients except for the food coloring. If your mixture looks like it's going to be too thick to actually use, you can add a little bit more corn syrup and a tiny splash of milk. Once your mixture is ready, take your plastic bag, turn it somewhat inside out on your hand, take your spoon, and put a nice big dollop in the plastic bag. Then add your food coloring. Close up the plastic bag. And squish it around in the bag to combine the food coloring. Now that bag is ready to go. Twist it off and set it aside while you make your others. After you finish decorating your skulls, just pop them back in the oven for about 10 minutes. You might want to test this first on one of the skulls that you might have messed up on or didn't really like quite as much as the others, just to make sure that the consistency of your frosting is thick enough that they're not just going to melt and ruin your sugar skulls. You want them in there for about 10 minutes, so it's long enough to set the icing and make it harden without actually melting it off of the skull. Or you can skip this step entirely if you're going to eat them that day. I just wanted to bake them because I used milk in the mixture and I wanted to harden up the frosting so that I could throw them all in a bowl together and they wouldn't get ruined. And those are your finished sugar skulls.
You were born for. Did your time to say the child of Chen have a chance, my man?